The first punch never landed. It stopped less than an inch from my face, suspended in the afternoon sunlight as the entire neighborhood watched in stunned silence. The young man throwing it was the undefeated son of my wealthiest neighbor, a black belt who had spent years believing nobody could stand against him. He expected me to flinch. He expected me to step backward. Instead, I simply looked into his eyes and lowered his fist with one hand. What he didn't know was that the quiet man he had come to humiliate had spent most of his adult life doing something far more dangerous than fighting in a neighborhood driveway. And by sunset, everyone would learn why I had spent years hiding who I really was. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone by appearances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, leave a comment, and subscribe to Dad's Soul Diaries. Your support helps these emotional stories reach people who may need a little hope today. My name is Warren Hale, and for the last 3 years, I had lived in a small blue house at the end of a quiet suburban street. My house wasn't impressive. The paint on the porch was beginning to fade, the fence needed repairs, and my old pickup truck had more scratches than shine. But I loved that place. After spending most of my adult life moving from one dangerous location to another, I had finally found something I never thought I would have again: peace. My next-door neighbor was Bennett Sterling, a wealthy real estate developer whose enormous mansion seemed almost ridiculous beside my modest home. His property had tall iron gates, perfectly trimmed hedges, a heated swimming pool, and a 3-car garage filled with vehicles worth more than my entire neighborhood. Bennett himself was polite whenever we crossed paths. He never treated me badly, although I always suspected he wondered why a man like me had chosen to live beside his estate. His only son, Rhett Sterling, was different. Rhett was 27, athletic, confident, and known throughout the city for his martial arts achievements. He had earned a black belt at a young age and had never lost a sanctioned match. People admired him. Some feared him. His father had built a private training room on the estate where Rhett practiced every morning. I rarely spoke to him. That changed one bright Saturday afternoon. I was repairing the wooden fence between our properties when Rhett walked out of his father's house wearing training clothes. He stopped several feet away and watched me work. I continued tightening a bolt. He eventually asked why I was replacing the fence myself instead of hiring someone. I told him I enjoyed working with my hands. He laughed. He looked at my old clothes, my dusty boots, and the pickup parked in my driveway. He asked whether I had ever done anything important with my life. I smiled and told him that I had done a few things I was proud of. He wanted details. I didn't give him any. That seemed to irritate him. Rhett had grown accustomed to people being impressed by his name, his wealth, and his fighting record. My lack of interest seemed to make him feel invisible. Over the next few weeks, he began making small comments whenever he saw me outside. He joked about my truck. He called me an old man. He once asked if I was afraid of his father because the Sterling property was so much bigger than mine. I ignored everything. Not because I was afraid. Because I knew something about anger that Rhett had never learned. Anger makes people predictable. And predictable people make mistakes. Then one afternoon, something happened that pushed him too far. A group of children from the neighborhood were playing soccer near the street. One of them accidentally kicked the ball over the Sterling family's fence. The child approached the gate nervously, afraid to knock. I walked over and retrieved it. As I handed the ball back, Rhett came outside. He accused the children of trespassing. The kids immediately apologized. Rhett continued lecturing them. I told him they were just children and that there was no harm done. He turned his anger toward me. He said I should stop interfering in his family's business. I calmly told him that if he had a problem with children playing near his fence, he should speak to their parents instead of intimidating them. His expression changed. He asked whether I was trying to challenge him. I said no. He said it looked like I was. I walked away. That should have been the end. But Rhett followed me. He came onto the sidewalk outside my house and demanded that I fight him. I refused. He laughed and told several neighbors that the old man was scared. People began gathering outside. I could feel the atmosphere changing. Rhett wanted an audience. He wanted to prove that he was stronger than the quiet neighbor who had refused to be impressed by him. I told him one final time that I wasn't interested. Then he stepped closer. He raised his fist. The neighborhood went silent. And that was when the first punch stopped inches from my face. I caught his wrist. His expression changed instantly. He tried to pull away. I didn't squeeze hard. I didn't hurt him. I simply held his wrist still. Then I released him. I told him that he needed to learn something before he challenged people. He demanded to know what. I said that the strongest person in the room was rarely the one trying hardest to prove it. He stared at me. Then he attacked again. This time, I moved. His kick passed beside me. I stepped away. He swung again. I avoided it. 3 seconds later, Rhett was standing several feet away, breathing heavily while I hadn't thrown a single punch. The neighbors were stunned. Rhett looked confused. He had expected me to fight like an ordinary civilian. Instead, every movement he made seemed obvious to me. Years of training had taught me to recognize body movement before the attack fully developed. But I still refused to hurt him. Rhett became furious. He charged again. I redirected him and gently placed him on the grass. No injury. No dramatic victory. Just control. For the first time in his life, Rhett looked frightened. Then his father arrived. Bennett had seen everything. He immediately told his son to stop. Rhett tried to explain that I had attacked him. Bennett looked at me. Then he looked at his son. He knew Rhett was lying. But Bennett also looked curious. He asked me where I had learned to move like that. I said I had received training a long time ago. He asked what kind. I avoided the question. Rhett demanded that I tell them. I didn't. I simply walked back toward my house. That night, I thought the situation was over. It wasn't. The following morning, Bennett came to my door. He was holding an old photograph. He asked whether the man in the picture was me. I looked at it. There I was, much younger, standing beside several military personnel. I hadn't seen that photograph in decades. Bennett told me that one of his former business partners had served with me. He had recognized my face. My secret was no longer a secret. I had served as a Navy SEAL. For years, I had trained operators in advanced combat, survival, and tactical discipline. But there was something I had never told anyone in the neighborhood. I hadn't left the military because I was tired of serving. I had left because of a mission that had taken the life of my closest friend. His name was Silas Reed. Silas had been more than a teammate. He had been family. During one operation, Silas had sacrificed himself to save several members of our team. I survived. He didn't. For years, I blamed myself. Eventually, I realized that carrying guilt wasn't the same thing as honoring someone's memory. So I walked away. I changed my name in public records where possible, avoided attention, and built a quiet life. I wanted to be Warren Hale, not the man people once knew by a military title. Bennett listened quietly. He apologized for his son's behavior. Then he asked whether I could teach Rhett. I refused. I told him Rhett didn't need better fighting skills. He needed humility. But life had another lesson waiting. 3 weeks later, Bennett's youngest daughter, Maribel, disappeared during a family gathering. She had been playing near the gardens when everyone realized she was gone. Panic spread through the estate. Security searched the property. Employees checked the gates. Bennett called the authorities. Rhett became frantic. He blamed himself for not watching his sister. I immediately noticed something everyone else had missed. The garden gate was open. There were small footprints near the edge of the property. But they weren't leading toward the street. They were leading toward an old service road behind the estate. I told Bennett we should follow them carefully. Rhett insisted on coming. We moved through the trees. I studied the ground. The footprints became difficult to see, but I noticed a broken branch. Then another. Someone had carried Maribel through the woods. We continued. After several minutes, we heard a faint sound. A child's voice. Maribel was trapped inside an abandoned maintenance shed. She had followed a stray puppy and accidentally locked herself inside. She was frightened but unharmed. Rhett rushed forward. I stopped him before he opened the damaged door because part of the roof was unstable. I carefully secured the entrance and helped Maribel out. Rhett immediately hugged his sister. Then he turned toward me. His eyes were full of tears. He thanked me. For the first time,